I mean, with the trees.
Yeah, I called that in.
Can you hear us now?
I got it. Yes. Loud and clear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
We haven't started meeting yet. Where Gary's on his way and he's not quite here. We might start here in just a minute.
Uh, actually,
We'll be patient.
AI software, the software.
Can you send it?
I'll do it right now.
That's cool.
I'll put it on our little.
Good.
Right there next to the co-op?
Right there.
What?
Stoplight.
Really? When did that come on?
Last week.
Yeah, big news, huh? We get a stoplight
Where did we have the stoplight?
off, right, the off bottom of the outfront.
Oh, so going through to go to the high school.
But big furniture, the off-ramp.
From 700 east, it'll have a stop sign, and coming from State Street towards the freeway will have a stop sign or a stop light. And then there'll be a stoplight as you come off the freeway.
I don't know if I'm happy about that or not, you know, first at McDonald's, then a stoplight.
Next to Wendy's, man.
Time to go.
We can go ahead and start. I don't know where
Time to go
Jay
pull
is, but we have.
Let's go.
Yeah, and then Gary should be here.
Okay, great.
Tell us again where they're at.
Three-way stop.
At the off-ramp.
It's the off ramp.
So like you come off.
When you come off the off
right,
ramp,
or turn left, it's gonna be right there where.
there'll be a left turn and a straight across. Then we'll have-
We're still doing the study and they come.
No, Ty and I went, and it was just in there, whatever you call it.
The
Planning stages.
It was a little bit beyond planning. Can't remember what they called it, but then
So,
they met with the safety people and because of the increase of accidents. It
Boom. I still
got right through.
I still think I don't get much traction with this. I still think we ought to make that frontage road a two-way road again, take all that traffic off of 600 east. That road in front of my mother-in-law's just gets pounded
You
down,
gotta live on 700 east.
it's pounded. Well, the thing of it is though, is that was a two-way road once upon a time.
Yeah.
That's what it will.
I want that to be an exit. Second
Back
exit.
on the hill. Well, we're down on 700, it's already.
A second exit. Oh, off of there,
Yeah, with the school buses.
you mean off of Scotter straight onto that road?
We should probably get started. I am recording, so.
My only thought. is-
On the record.
They're not even paying.
How you get tiny trucks, how that.
We'll come up with either way they come.
Yeah.
it'll save some lives though.
Even, you say there are tons of accidents down there, I've never actually seen one. Like right there at the off ramp in State Street and Commercial, like I've never actually seen an accident there.
Derek was headed to graduation and the lady came out right, I've been getting off the freeway. So I do know that one.
Okay.
That was just at graduation just now,
No.
a while back.
30 years.
Oh, okay. That is a while back.
My grandson.
Couple just in front of Jay's over the years, so it, I don't.
my
The data
grandson
shows
got
that
on a
in-
bike-
Oh, yeah?
But it's what?
A bike,
Oh,
he was on a bike and car hit him.
That's just a bad intersection all the way around.
Yeah, I'm just surprised I haven't seen more, you know, with this, as limited as the disability is.
Hey, go
We-
ahead,
we
Jay.
got
let's
people
do
in?
The work session, then we'll vote in the pro tem,
Okay.
general.
Welcome, Planning Commission. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Today is June 17th, Morgan City Planning Commission. Our chair and vice chair are not here today, so we're gonna request that you vote in a pro temp for tonight. And then in July, we'll go ahead and elect a new Planning Commission chair and vice chair per our Planning Commission regulations.
Will someone here to just make a motion?
Yep, you just make a motion, and it's just for tonight. It's not.
Jake, would you make sure all the microphones are on?
Oh, yep, if you will, yeah, turn on your microphone when speaking.
Yeah, thank you.
Make a motion that for tonight, we nominate Aaron Bott to be our pro tem chairperson.
Oh, is your microphone on, Becky?
Second it.
You call for that vote?
Jay Bachman nominated, so there, so then, second. And the second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Motion passed. Congratulations, Aaron, you're a pro tem for tonight.
Okay, you're now in charge,
Okay,
just like
with
that.
that, I will officially turn the time back over to Jake.
Okay, well, welcome. Okay, we're gonna go over a work session and I'm gonna do a screen share. Mark, can we hear you now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, okay, great.
Okay.
We have audio there, so. Okay, tonight we have 3 items. I would dare say that none of them are of tremendous significance, importance. They're all smaller things. However, if you're a chicken or an egg lover, you might feel otherwise, or an ADU lover. But right now, I'll just tell you kind of quickly what the big idea is behind all these. And then during our work session, we can go through those. So for item number 1, public hearing on accessory dwelling units, looking at the land use chart. Last month, Teresa brought to my attention, we had a discussion that our accessory dwelling unit ordinance. So in the city, there's a number of R18 zones, and however, a lot of the lots in size R18 are bigger than 8,000 square feet. And there's also a number of single-family home lots that are much larger than their actual zoning. And our ordinance for ADUs it's based on lot size, and it's also based on zone. And so, for example, you could have a 12,000 square foot home or 12,000 square foot lot, but be in a R18, and you wouldn't be able to have a detached ADU. However, the same size lot in a R110 or an R112, you could have a detached ADU. And so the thought was, let's just expand the zones where ADUs are permitted. The requirements we're proposing are still the same lot size, setbacks, all of that is the same. We're just saying that if you're in these zones, then you can go ahead and have that. So we can come back to that in a minute. The second item is farm animals, but really we've been asked by city council to just maybe look at chickens. So that's what I think we want to focus on tonight is just chickens. Maybe we come back in the future and look at other animals, but that's what the big request is. A number of individuals have come to city council and requested to have chickens. And
Where this is listed as a draft discussion, what is the action that we're wanting to take tonight?
the action is you give me feedback, and then I'll come back in July with an ordinance. Especially if we come to what we actually want, then I'll come back with an ordinance, and we'll do a public hearing in July, and then we'll send it on to the city council for chickens. If you feel like it needs a lot more discussion or debate or research or whatever, then that could get pushed. But if it's a simple thing. And then the number 3 item is more of following protocol in terms of the general plan. As you know, for a year plus, we've been working on the downtown plan, the parks plan, and the trails plan. And we're preparing language for the general plan update that is consistent with what we've presented so far. The presentation, we've done multiple surveys, we did the visioning, the scenarios, the open houses, all of that. And so state law is that when you're going to update your general plan, you do a notice to the public, and then you also let significant stakeholders, which in our case is really the county, let the county know that we're going to update the general plan. And then we just proceed with it. So it's more of just a public notice that we're going to move forward. You don't necessarily have to spend time on this tonight, other than just acknowledging it. I could pull up the presentation and we could walk through a couple of the main ideas of where it's going. But you'll see draft language on that, potentially in July or August on that. And what we'll do is like we did with the general plan last year and the year before, you'll see draft language, then we'll have a public hearing, you'll make a recommendation, and then it'll go to city council. And specifically, we're looking at the downtown parks and trails. But if there's a few, there's a few things here and there while it's open, I may just make a couple suggestions on that. There's a couple other things I've noticed. There's a couple of the land use maps that I've noticed that we should fix while we're doing that. Should we go ahead and dive into the ADU?
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay. So this is what was in your packet. So again, we're not proposing changes to the standards of ADUs, just where they're allowed. So, and by state law, you actually have to allow ADUs on any single family home. And so we're just, in this case, we're more getting up to code with the state law. So we're proposing that the R18 zone allow for ADUs, the RM7, the RM15, and then the MD. MD is manufacturing and distribution. And that's only within existing single family. If someone wanted to go into the MD zone today and build a new single family home, they couldn't, because it's not allowed. But if there's a home that's there prior to when it was classified as that zoning, then they could have an internal. An internal ADU is within the footprint of the existing home. You want to remodel your basement, the attic, something over the garage, just within the footprint of the home. And then for external ADUs, R18, RM7, and RM15. And the conditions are that the minimum lot requirements, and again, it's single family use, and all of our design, everything else still applies. The reasons we're proposing it is, to be up to code with state law. Also, we realize that there's a potential out there because there's a number of R18 lots that are bigger than 8,000 square feet that meet the requirements on that. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up the code. So you can see, we can run through those.
The changes in red, they're the only ones that are changing. Everything else stays the same, right, Jay?
Sorry, say that again.
Just these changes in red, that's all that's being changed. The rest of it stays the same.
Yes. Yeah, we're just looking on.
You got
In
it.
fact, here's the code changes. This was in the packet.
Right.
This was just some additional language that wasn't necessary, so I crossed that out. See ADU land use for permitted zones. And then under this chart already exists in our code. So permitted in the following zones. These are the ones that's already permitted. A for agriculture, RR rural residential, R120, 20,000 square foot lots, R112, 12,000 square foot lots, R110. So those it's already permitted. But it was not permitted, like I said, in the R18, the RM15, RM7, and then the MD. And that's for internal. And also attached. Attached is you want to do a home addition and add an ADU onto the structure.
That column that says permitted, we're gonna take that whole column out.
Yeah, because they are permitted. You know, the ordinance grants the permitted anyways. So it's removing some unnecessary language. And then on the detached ADU, it's already allowed in agriculture, rural residential, the R120, the R112, and the R110. And we're proposing that it be added to the R18, the RM7, and the RM15. You'll notice it's not in the C or the MD, and that's because state law, that's the detached ADU is per Morgan City Code. State law does not dictate detached accessory dwelling units at this time. There's been a lot of discussion and rumors that could change in the future, but right now, that's how it is. And then this language here in red is also what proposing to add, just to clarify, lot size minimums and design requirements apply to all zones. I mean, it's a given, but it's just clarifying that. And now I just wanted to pull up and go through. So,
Mark, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So are we making these changes primarily to meet the state code?
to meet the state code, to also,
It sounds like in this case,
More to
it's
be-
more
to clarify
create consistency
and to-
within our
and to
own.
create consistency.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
let me show you right here. So, ADUs, let's see. These numbers are in my head, but I just want, so for an internal ADU, this is per state law, the lot has to be 6,000 square feet or bigger. So how our code is written now is that you could have a lot that is 6,000 square feet or bigger, but not be in one of these zones. And that's where we're out of conflict with the state law. And really, if someone came forward with that application, we would just have to approve it anyway. But this does get us up to speed with that. And then for the detached, it's at 10,000 square feet. That's the minimum lot size. And so let's say that you had a home in the R18 zone, which the R18 zone in the past went down to 8,000 square feet. But there's a lot of properties that are actually much bigger than 8,000 square feet in that. And so they wouldn't be able to have a detached ADU, even though their lot may be the same as somebody else. So does this make sense after some explaining kind of what we're proposing? We're not changing the requirements. Our requirements, I think, are good. I'll just run through some of these requirements. For example, okay, the lot size, you have to have one off-street parking. You don't change the appearance of the single-family home. For the internal ADU, it stays the same. It's not permitted in a mobile home. And then additions or remodels must match architectural styles, materials, form, color. If you're going to add on and build an ADU, just do it in a way that matches. For detached, we have lighting covered. Can't be on steep slopes. We have setbacks. Again, architectural styles matching. So if you're going to have a detached ADU, then it should be similar and match your single-family home. There's the front setback. It needs to be 5 feet behind the front of the the home. And we're not proposing any changes on these. I just kind of wanted to run through some of these. The side yard setback is 10 feet, 15 if you're in a corner. The rear is 10 feet. The distance from the primary structure is 10 feet. So your main home and you want to have your detached ADU, your cottage or whatever, then it's 10 feet. And then the fire department wanted us to have this, that it's within 250 feet of a fire hydrant so that they can get a hose to it. One parking stall per bedroom. The height is 25 feet. And then the size of it, how big can your detached ADU be? It can't be greater than the main floor living of the home, and then up to 1,000 square feet. So, any questions on the ADU? We felt like this was simple enough we could go straight to a public hearing and change on that. Okay.
If there aren't any questions, number 2.
Okay, let's talk about farm animals, which mostly chickens, what we want to look at tonight.
Quite a bit of discussion about this.
There has
through
been.
the council.
People want chickens. I mean, this is the country, kind of. Okay. So, the current ordinance, I put that in the packet. Let's just go through the ordinance where we're at now. Farm animals are allowed in every zone except commercial zones. Number of animals and fowl in these zones shall be limited to subsection B. Animals allowed. So you can do all of these animals, a cow, a horse, sheep, or 25 pheasants or chickens or rabbits or pigeons or 10 geese or ducks. Animal or fowl not specifically listed may be substituted for those listed for similar size. But this applies to 20,000 square feet. For every 20,000 square foot of lot area, one of the above mentioned types will be allowed. So unless you had and so you could have one of those if you have 20,000 square feet. And it says 25 or 20,000 square feet of lot area. Does the city interpret that meaning animal area or the size of the lot?
We've interpreted it as the size of lot.
As the size of the lot,
Does it
okay.
matter if something is built on that lot and how large that is?
Well, that is a factor. I think that's a good point because you could have a half-acre lot and
But if you're
have your horse in 10 feet by 10 feet, and
Yeah.
that's different than giving it space.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, for every additional 10,000 square feet of lot area, one additional type of animal will be allowed. So if you have 30,000 square feet, then you get 2 cows. So the issue that's been brought to city council by some members of the public is the desire to have chickens, within neighborhoods on single family lots. So that's probably the biggest item, and the direction is maybe we just focus on that item. I don't know. What are your thoughts? What do you hear from your neighbors and where you live on animals and chickens or in Morgan City? Is it an issue?
I have several neighbors that love their chickens and I'm fine with it if they're kept well. I just don't like the roosters. I'm gonna be voting against roosters.
How big are the lots in your neighborhood?
My lot is about 15,000 square feet, so a third of an acre. Some of them might be a little bit smaller,
So they probably have chickens illegally,
probably.
because unless, per the ordinance, unless it's 20,000. And
Probably so then.
Yeah, with zoning, the policing is always per complaint. Like if somebody has chickens and nobody ever complains or says anything, then the city just doesn't hear it. There's just not the resources to send around an officer to look in backyards. There's people that want to have them.
I don't see chickens would be that big a problem.
There's not so many complaints as there are people going to the city council asking to be able to
Yeah.
have.
People want to do
Right,
it
but I get your
legally.
question. I mean, they could be loud, they could be smelly, depending on the amount of space they're given. And it is important that they're well kept, so they need to have enough space to ensure that they're well kept. Yeah.
Also, there's quite a lot of discussion about keeping them within that property owner's property.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not free ranging all
No, not neighborhood range chickens. Fair enough.
over. Having chickens scattered throughout the neighborhood on everybody's else's property, that's.
I just feel like you're in Hawaii.
I was gonna say.
You know, right?
But that's-
There's a few other
That's the
differences.
That's the biggest,
Okay, and I see they can scratch up your yard.
Oh, yeah.
On your driveway.
well, not only that, you know, another item happens when they're on your yard too, so fertilizer, so. Yeah. So that's
Well, and then
probably the
what if your
biggest
cat
one.
gets to it, or what if your dog gets to, I mean, it does create.
Oh, yeah, our neighbor's dog killed some of our chickens a long time ago. The kids weren't happy about that.
Yeah. Mayor, did you
I
have?
think, Aaron, that included ducks too, ducks and chickens.
Do we want to put them together?
Thought it was, but.
No.
I'm no duck expert, so just, are they,
Do,
Quieter.
do they not fly away? Okay.
okay,
Turkeys?
No, ducks.
that's a different issue.
Turkeys,
That's
I know.
different issue.
So what's the proposal? Like, what are we suggesting as an alternative to what's currently written?
Well, this is what's written here. And then tonight was the discussion, and then we'll come back with an ordinance. I do have some,
Popular.
I'll zoom in on this, some basic kind of idea potentially that been even just looking at today.
So, if I could just give some clarification for this, Aaron, is the reason why we've got it on the agenda is that it is in the land use section of our code. And citizen comment was discussed in the city council, and the city council has asked us to look at amending the ordinance to allow chickens. So that's why it's coming to light by the request of the city council.
Allow chickens on smaller lots.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chicken, but not with
Apparently.
4 to 6 chickens.
So-
I remember that.
So this is what I have up here on an 8 to 10,000 square foot lot.
So these are suggestions.
Yeah, this is
it
what I
currently is.
came up with.
Okay.
Which is, I think, similar to what I heard from the council. I mean, this is just for discussion. We can change this. So if it's 8 to 10,000, 4 to 6 hens. If it's 12,000 square foot lot, then 6 to 8, and then up to 20,000 square foot is 8 to 10. And then we can add in additional information on no roosters, coop setbacks, how far should it be from dwellings or specifically property lines, right? Someone may put it on their edge of their property, but it's actually next to your house or, kind of noisy, smelly, manure management. I mean, that's just a reality. That's a major thing with it. Suggestion, maybe feed storage, like just to prevent rodents. And then I don't think we need a permit, but you could. I don't think we want to do the permit idea, but.
Mark,
anyway.
did you have a question or a comment?
No, I'm
Oh, okay.
fine.
Thought I saw your hand, sorry.
Yeah. I scratched my head.
Don't make any sudden movements.
So I think the containment, that's probably another condition that we would add is they need to be
Yeah.
contained.
Yeah.
And are you okay with containment on someone's own property? The other type of containment is within actually a fenced area. Coop, which, you know, some people might say that's too far because they want to let them run around their backyard, it's fenced in. Or others, you know, or the ordinance could be, it does need to be in the coop.
Is there a potential increased nuisance to neighbors? Like, will chickens, I don't know, peck under the fence or anything like that if they're not contained?
The mayor's experience, the biggest complaint we had that came to us was when chickens got in a neighbor's yard and totally annihilated their vegetable garden, their flower
Yeah.
beds.
Contained.
You get 60 chickens in your flower beds, they'll eat all your flowers. But for a neighbor that tried themselves in a nice garden, nice flower bed, that was devastating.
Yeah.
So that's at least that was the big one we had in the past.
So that's kind of my question. If we don't require a coop, is a fenced yard sufficient to keep them contained?
Could be, it just depends on the quality of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, how tall and all that. And
Yeah,
they can get up, they can go over fences, they can hop up stuff and they'll get out.
Do you have a
yeah,
mic?
and also your definition of a fence is a little important too. I mean, you can have a 3-board fence and that's not gonna do much to stop a
Mhm.
chicken
Right.
from,
Yeah.
you know,
It could be on, must be contained within the property, you know, and that's up to the owner to, how do they want to do it, rather than us telling them,
yeah.
you know,
Some type of fence that can.
Yeah. we don't want to require prison fencing, keep chickens in.
Wiring.
Yeah, with the stuff at the top. Any thoughts on this? So do we add ducks too then, I guess, to the?
Oh, sorry, Mark, yes.
Yeah, yeah, from the conversations I've had with neighbors who are neighboring somebody that has chickens and it's listed on here is the feed story to prevent rodents.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I think that becomes a real issue because if it's not contained, you get mice very quickly and they don't stay in the neighbors, they don't stay in the yard that has the chickens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jake, another question. Would you ever build in damages? You talk about somebody's yard being beat up. Would that be a responsibility of the chicken owner?
Let's let legal handle
On that one.
chicken damage.
Yeah, chicken damage. Yeah, good question.
You get to grill them if they come onto your
They
property.
get- it-
Yeah, and then how do you determine the value? You know, I mean that
You have chicken
those
dinner.
are
Yes, you have to
Yeah.
buy the barbecue sauce.
yeah,
Barbecue sauce. No, the way that's enforced would be either civilly or if they are charged and they've done some damage because they've let their chickens run wild and they're charged in court, the judge can assess restitution, you know, on a case like that, if it ever happens.
But would it be the neighbor that was
Neighbor won't
damaged
have to-
making the complaint?
Yeah, the neighbor would have to make the complaint.
Yeah, so if they've other, you know, they may not be willing to if they've otherwise got good relations.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's more likely than not. I don't,
Yeah.
too many chicken cases coming through the court.
Any other thoughts?
Okay. I'm on the ducks. I'm
Oh,
a
Mayor
little,
Did have something,
okay.
sorry. Excuse me, Jake.
Say I'm not in violation, but there's about 40 ducks behind my house in the ditch.
Are they
Who feeds them, Jake or
They
Steve?
started off domestic, but they've just been multiplying for 20
There are
years.
quite a few little flocks of uncontained ducks throughout the county.
Yeah,
They're a
So is that
traffic
taking care of
hazard
that?
sometimes.
they haven't bugged us though.
Yeah,
The one nice thing about ducks and chickens is the insects are way down,
okay.
like grasshoppers and earwigs.
Are they somebody's private property? Meaning like they have their own little thing?
You know how somebody buys a duck on Easter or something? And then it turns from a chick to a duck and then, but there's just a ditch behind my house, so that's just a natural place, but.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
But they haven't bothered us at all. They haven't come in our yard. There's a neighbor across the street with about 50 of them. And they walk every day across the road and down to the ditch. It's kind of fun to watch, but they haven't bothered my garden. My garden's back there. They haven't done anything that way.
That's good. Yeah. Well,
Okay, so we do want to go ahead with ducks or chickens.
but do we want, I mean, we'd want fewer ducks if we match what's in the current ordinance, right? Fewer ducks than chickens for
You're
the
saying,
same amount of
you're
square
saying
feet.
ducks should be less than chickens?
I'm saying they are, so do
Oh,
we
they
want to
are.
be consistent with that? It's,
That's-
oh, maybe I'm looking at Wellsville. Let me make sure.
Yeah, yeah, I did put in some
Yeah.
other examples in there. So this is in the Morgan. So on 10 geese or ducks. Yeah, that's right. This is per Morgan ordinance. So if you have a 20,000 square foot, you can do 25 pheasants or chickens, but only 10 geese or ducks. So apparently it's 1.5 chickens chickens are 1.5 more the problem than ducks. I don't know, or less.
How large a space do you have to allow for a rooster?
Um,
A farm?
Big.
Yeah, no, it is,
I would say,
Industry.
but it should just
They
be,
hear it every.
Well,
I don't
if
care
it's
if
far
they-
enough away.
Yeah. Don't hear it loud.
I would say that's like an ag. Are they allowed in the ag? Do we have anything?
Yeah, no, it's fine, yeah, I know. And we're not in a subdivision where the roosters be
Yeah.
crowing at 4 AM.
I just wondered if it was in this ordinance anywhere, or is it somewhere else?
Going back to your additional considerations, I think some of those we should definitely add as
Yeah,
recommendations.
Well,
not
we-
Just considerations. I
all
guess.
right. Well, we can add them as code. So,
Yeah,
so
like
that they are
roosters
requirements.
Would be one.
I think,
The feed storage, I think, would have to be included.
yeah, I think we do all these if you're
The
okay.
newer
with it.
management would have to be included. I don't care about the permits. I don't think that's necessary, but
Okay,
I think those other ones you wanna have.
I agree with that. Yes, right.
It feels good to have lots of stuff, but when it comes to the bottom, at the end of the day, none of it's gonna be enforced or even looked at unless there's a complaint.
Yeah.
So you got all the stuff you want, but it's never gonna be enforced or looked at.
But as someone who
Just
really
cause-
doesn't
yeah,
like
just-
chickens. Yeah. I would like there to be language in there, should I need to make a complaint? Yeah,
Hey, question for Gary, back to the,
Picking up, yeah, it's hard to enforce, and I have a neighbor that has chickens and roosters. By opening this up to everybody that has 8,000 to 10,000 square foot, are we just opening it up to a lot more people bringing in their chickens and their roosters? And now we have to start, I don't know.
So the permit would probably, but then that would, someone would have to.
enforce that
yeah,
as well.
enforce it.
I don't know if you can have a lot more, it's just gonna make those that are currently doing it legal.
and it does give
I don't think you have more
regulations
people that
on it,
want
like,
chickens.
you can have chickens, by the way, but you gotta do this.
Okay, Tony, did you?
Oh, not to speak for Gary or the mayor, but typically when we have an ordinance in place and we don't have, how do I put this? We're not proactive with code enforcement. We're sort of.
Right, reactive.
Yeah.
Reactive. So if you have something in place like this, if you want to come to the city and file a complaint
Good point.
about your neighbor's chickens, then at that point, the city is obligated to look into it, right, Gary? So, you know, and if you just don't care, you just don't want to cause any waves, just live with it, I guess. But if it's in place, then we're required to go.
That's good.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying. It's a safety net sort of for complaints if there is a problem.
Yeah, that's-
Aaron, I've got a question for Gary. Back on damages again, Gary, would you or could you write in the damages or into the code, damages or the responsibility of the owner, even though that may be a given?
Do we have anything like that in our dog licensing code? Or anything?
You could write something like that in there, but damages really are, they're kind of a tough one.
You gotta sue your neighbor. You gotta-
Yeah,
But
those are things that are issues of fact for a fact finder, like a judge or a court, or, you know, so
Mhm.
ultimately there is a recourse for anybody who is damaged, whose property is damaged by these chickens. And then also, if they're real nuisance, you know, if they're really stinky and they're really attracting rodents, that type of thing, you know, that's when the county would step in and probably look at enforcement through the county, but we haven't had to do that on any of our enforcement actions. Because we've got a city manager that goes out and knocks on the door and kind of, that's our, and Roe's great. He does a great job. When Roe's at your door and he's telling you to, you know, to correct a situation, it usually happens. And so we haven't had a problem with collecting damages, and it would be tough to figure out what the damages might be to your flower garden, you know? It's like,
Sure.
Our garden a lot higher than
But-
someone.
My thinking would go along these lines, and that is if I read the ordinance and knew that I was responsible or reminded, maybe that's a better way of putting it. I may look at it and say, I'm only going to do 5 chickens instead of 10, just recognizing that there is liability or being reminded that there is. I guess that's maybe a better way of stating why it could be important.
so this
to-
might
to-
be helpful, and that is that under both state law and under our zoning ordinance, we have a penalties section that does provide for somebody to be able to take somebody to court and receive damages civilly. They can take them civilly, they can take them criminally, they can, in other words, an individual can do that. We don't have to do that for them. And so it's already in the code. In fact,
Okay.
in 10.8, it's in chapter 8 of the Utah code. There's a provision that specifically allows for individuals to use the law to go after people who are in violation, and that includes even injunctions or, you know, to
Sure.
stop somebody from doing it. So
Yeah. Okay.
find that section for you, David, and send it to you if that's all right.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you. I mean, you know, we don't want to over-engineer it either, and I think it needs to be kept as simple as we can.
Yeah.
So are you suggesting then, Dave, that it might be worthwhile to add language to our ordinance that points to that statute and says under Utah State Code, whatever,
Mhm.
violators may be subject to litigation?
Yeah, what do you think, Gary?
Potentially, I mean, if our language just
Yeah.
points to the state language, I don't see a problem with that.
Let me see if
Oh, no.
I think we've got it in our code already. Let me just look.
Okay.
Yeah, it's intend to.
It said it boils down to either you gotta be able to sue, you either gotta almost sue your neighbor.
Yeah.
There's gotta be infractions 4, 5, or 6 times over 2 or 3 year period of time before the city gets upset enough the city
Yeah, I mean,
Legal action.
That's it. I
Those
mean,
two
this-
things gotta happen
this
before that even
language
kicks in.
wouldn't change anything. I think the suggestion was that it might cause somebody to think twice before they take on more chickens than they can handle.
Nobody's gonna read the code.
Well, that's true.
And hey,
Take it from
that
the
is-
librarian.
All the
Nobody
hammers you want
reads.
in the code, but nobody's gonna read the code.
That's
Just to
true.
read the hammer.
Yeah.
It's just to feel good for the people writing the code.
And why do we write any of it?
So if we had to, we can do it.
Yep.
If somebody's in violation 2 or 3 years, so gets upset enough, then the city can go prosecute.
Which they already can.
Yeah,
So
they
it
already
doesn't
can.
need to be included for that reason. Yeah, I can see that. Okay, anything else on chickens?
Okay.
So it kind of, I mean, we'll address it in the open meeting, but it sounds to me like we're more or less okay with this allowance with the additional standards included. Is that kind of where everybody's at? Anything we need to discuss before we move on?
just one more question to Jake. You know, Gary shared the Layton ordinance and seemed to think that it worked quite well. I don't see any reference to that in your report. Could we draw from that at all, or why did we not look at that?
I was just looking for smaller communities, more
Okay.
rural. Nothing gets Layton. It's a great city.
It just didn't seem a good match for
Yeah,
Morgan.
just looking for smaller communities.
Okay.
Okay, item number 3.
Okay. So, again, this one is just looking at, we're updating the general plan specifically for the downtown area, parks and trails. I'm gonna pull up the presentation from a couple months ago. Gonna run through the vision, and the state law requires you to do a notice of the general plan. So it doesn't mean that you actually have the language ready or the draft document, or anything, just letting the public know and stakeholders that we're gonna be doing that. Teresa, that went to the county. Who else did we send the notice specifically to?
We sent the notice to the utilities that are not city utilities, the county, public safety, the county attorney, Inc. And then it was posted in the city public notice website, our website.
Okay. So this is what we looked at in March. And I believe I brought it. These were the big posters that were up for a month. So this was our process. We had a public workshop at the middle school. Public came, participated. We created maps. Then we had an open house where the public was invited and gave their input on the alternative scenarios. Then a specific vision was created from those. That vision was presented. And then now the next step is to take that vision into the general plan and then into code updates. So that's where we are now. We're actually here on number 4. This is the downtown study area, Commercial Street, 125, State Street, 300 North, out to the river. So that was the study area. And then for parks and trails, citywide and also out into the annexation area, which is in blue. And even visioning beyond, how can we connect to unincorporated county trails as well. Our online questionnaire, we had 186 participants, 100 plus at the workshops. Really good involvement in terms of city planning. We created the 15 maps through the process. These were some of the big themes that came up for the downtown, mixed use and walkable. Mixed use meaning residential uses as well as commercial, new housing in the downtown, new commercial, emphasis on State Street in terms of being safer, but still more commercial, auto-oriented like it is now. And then Commercial Street being a little bit more walkable. Parks, this idea of an emerald necklace, meaning parks along the river. New neighborhood parks, improve existing parks, potentially a new regional park at someday. Again, this is a 20-year vision. We're not going to get everything in 1 year. Exploring a recreation center. The public wants a recreation center. They want swimming pools, but those are very expensive. And what is the desire to pay for that? You know, taxes, user fees, partnerships. School district doesn't seem like they want to do it a whole lot, but that is a good partnership, and also the county as well. Also river parks. Historically, Morgan hasn't really looked at the Weber River as a great resource in terms of parks or recreation on it and all that. Yet you look at what happens in the county, right? And right now in the summer, everybody and their dog is going up to Hennifer and riding in a tube down the river. And so what does that look like? And then for trails, we're looking at natural surface trails, particularly in the foothills, continuing a high focus on the paved trail on the river. And then just really expanding the trails. So these were the main themes, the walkable downtown scenario, reimagining State Street, what can we do to improve it, beef it up a little bit. And then also looking at just if we were to continue down the same path. And then the ultimate result was not a single scenario, but a combination of the three. So I'm going to skip all this and go to the vision.
Yeah, maybe in the interest of time, we could kind of wrap up this and revisit it.
Okay,
in the
we
meeting,
can
if
just
that's
come back
okay.
in the meeting.
Okay.
But this just kind of gives you an update on that.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Anything else before we adjourn the work session?
Madam Chair, just so you're aware, Title 10, Chapter 6 contains all of the state provisions that we were talking about, including enforcement. So,
it would be redundant for us to state it.
well, they actually are stated in there.
Okay.
That a zoning violation.
Oh, okay.
In fact, we've added some things which are kind of cool. Like, we've added where the city manager can go out as an inspector and say, this is not good. Person can appeal to the city council. City council can issue an order to correct the situation, and then we go after them legally if they don't. So it's pretty thorough. That was some time ago that they put that in there.
Thank you.
The city manager or road. But typically works, city manager or road go out.
Mhm.
First, there's a three-step program. First, they just talk to them. If they're good and they solve it, that's the end of the story. If they're not, they go give them a written request and give them so many days to fix the situation. If they fix it, great, end of story. If they don't, then the third step, then they go out and they actually give them they can give them a court type summons, or they can just hire it done and put on their taxes and make them pay for it. Those approaches are already in there.
Impressive. Okay. All right. Well, with that, thank you, and we will adjourn the work session.
Thanks.
Quiet in this meeting.
This is the first. Well, but we get things. We get all these.
Hmm.
Yes. That's very good. You remember putting that in place where tie goes out?
No, that. Okay.
They don't give the notice, the period of city council hearing. Choose order, which is an official order, saying correct. They don't, you can actually find them and put it on their, add it to their water flows there. Yeah, can you put some? Good.
But I've never seen them happen.
Maybe not.
I've never had my career.
City council, or time. My guys are so good.
Teresa, just let me know when we're ready. I'm ready whenever you are.
All right, welcome to the Planning Commission meeting, Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. We would like to welcome the commissioners, both present and online, and the members of the public that we have joining us. And I just want to make sure everyone is aware that this meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and it is being recorded. So our first order of business tonight will be approval of the minutes from the May 20th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? If
The only thing I saw, Teresa, is, I think it has me listed as being here in person. And I was actually not in person last time. Yeah.
Yes. Any other changes? Okay, we will accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting
Okay, with that change,
with that change. Yeah.
do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Looks like it is unanimous. Minutes are approved. Okay, with that, we will move to item number 1. It is a public hearing. So do we require a motion and a second to open a public hearing? We will accept that. If anyone feels so inclined.
Okay, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you. I will second that. All in favor? Okay, the public hearing is now open. This is amending 10.16.180.05 accessory dwelling units land use chart table zones. Jake, would you like to give us just a brief?
Yeah, you bet.
This?
So we did discuss this in our work session, and the main idea is that after further review of the ADU ordinance, accessory dwelling units, we found some inconsistencies that we wanted to fix. In the ordinance for internal ADUs, matching state law, that's 6,000 square foot lots. And our table as it is written now, it's allowed in the ag zone, rural residential, the R120, the R112, and the R110. However, it's not allowed in R18, RM15, RM7, or the MD if you had an existing single-family home. And so the idea is not to change the standards or the requirements for accessory dwelling units, but just fixing the zoning where it's allowed. So all the standards would still apply, the architecture standards, the setbacks, the parking, all of that. And then for external or detached ADUs, then also looking at that would be allowed in the R18, the RM7, or the RM15. You would still need a 10,000 square foot lot. So if you were in that zone but had a smaller lot, then you wouldn't be able to permit it. When we created this ordinance a couple of years ago, we spent almost 6 months on it. It was a very extensive process in terms of research, state code, all the requirements on it. We looked at dozens of different ADU ordinances And I think it was well thought out. And just like with any ordinance, there's always a little bit of tweaking and looking at items as you go. So the existing ordinance is in gray, and then the proposed changes are in red. And some of the language is just removing unnecessary language. So for permitted use, it would just be in the land use table. That's this table right here. It's permitted through the ordinance, so we don't need this column showing where it's permitted. And then just this footnote reminding the public that lot size minimum and design requirements apply. So if you live in an RM7 or an R18 and your lot is too small, then you're not granted the ability to have the ADU.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, so is there anyone from the public that would like to be heard? Okay.
It's your shot.
Usually got it now.
What's that, Ray?
Usually ask Teresa if there's anybody.
Okay, yeah.
Somebody online.
So maybe.
Let's
we'll
just
wait
give
for-
her a minute.
Yep. Teresa to come back and see if anyone is online.
Okay.
In the meantime, any additional questions or clarifications from the commission?
Okay. I'll just go through some of the requirements. This is the whole ordinance. So it is very extensive. We're just looking at a tiny little piece on that. For an internal ADU or attached, the lot size requirement is 6,000 square feet. That's per state code. Attached is where you do a home addition and you want to add on to your home to create an ADU. These are some of the requirements right here. Owner occupancy. So either the owner lives in the ADU or they live in the home. In terms of a rental, you'll never get for every landlord you have a tenant. That's not how it works with apartments. And then it's so it's a residential or an ag lot. And then on the detached, going down to those standards, 10,000 square foot lot. It's 5 feet behind the front of the home. And then these are the setbacks, 10 feet on internal, 15 on the corner, 10 feet from the rear, 10 feet from the primary structure. That was reviewed with fire department. It's more than the fire code requires. So a little bit of safety there. And then within 250 feet from a fire hydrant. And then architecturally, it needs to be compatible with the home. So somebody who's going to build a granny flat, a carriage house, coach house, there's a million names for them, then they'd have to bring in plans to kind of show both of them. And then the height is 25 feet. So there could be cases where the home is actually taller than the ADU. Teresa, we wanted to see if there's anybody online for comments.
Yes, before we close the public hearing, we wanted to make sure we didn't miss anybody online. Okay. Thank you, Jake, for that overview and just to kind of restate what you stated, this doesn't change the requirements. It just makes the requirements more consistent across various zones.
Yes.
So I guess, is that a fair restatement? Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, we will accept a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make motion to close public hearing.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Griffith seconds. All in favor? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. So at this point, if anyone does have any further questions or comments, now would be a great time to bring them forward, or we would also entertain a positive recommendation to the city council or negative recommendation to the city council to adopt the proposed revisions to the ordinance.
I'll make a motion that we send it to the city council, a positive recommendation to amend ordinance 10-16-1805, accessory dwelling units N03.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Becky. Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All right, then we will vote. All in favor? And it is unanimous. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 2, draft discussion amending 10.16.090 farm animals with regards to chickens and also ducks, right?
And also ducks.
And also ducks.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start with going over the current ordinance, because that's a good place to start. So this is the existing Morgan City farm animal ordinance. Area zone for farm animals. Farm animals are allowed in every zone except commercial zones, including all residential. The number and type of animals and fowl allowed in these zones shall be limited in the subsection B of this section. Animals allowed, not more than any of the following are allowed: 1 cow or horse or 2 sheep or goats or 25 pheasants or chickens or rabbits or pigeons or 10 geese or ducks. Animals and fowl not specifically listed may be substituted for those listed of similar size. Combinations of animals and or fowl are also allowed by conditional use for a farm industry as set forth in this title. Lot size for every 20,000 square feet of lot area, meaning the size of the property, one of the above mentioned types of animals will be allowed. Furthermore, for every additional 10,000 square feet of lot area, one additional type of animal will be allowed. So what this didn't cover is if you wanted to have a few chickens or ducks, and you had a lot less than 20,000 square feet. I'll mention that the packet and my research was a little bit broader. I was looking at this in a bigger sense in terms of farm animals. We've received some additional guidance from city council and city leadership to, let's just look at chickens for now. That is the request from the public at city council. And I was at one of the meetings. Some members of the public came and requested to legally have chickens on smaller lots.
Okay. And as per our discussion in the work session, you have come up with some suggestions for smaller flocks of chickens on smaller lots.
Yeah, so here's maybe a start, additional research. So the lot is 8 to 10,000 square feet, maybe 4 to 6 hens. I don't know if a duck, if it matters, if it's a hen or rooster, but specifically chickens. On 12,000 square feet, 6 to 8 hens, and then up to, so that'd be between 12,000 and 20,000 square feet, 8 to 10 hens. I don't know if the number of chickens and the number of ducks are equal in terms of their
Impact.
That's the right word. Nuisance impact. Some things that we're recommending is no roosters due to noise. The city does allow them in ag zones, so somebody has some very large agriculture kind of farm property. Coop setbacks 20 to 40 feet from dwellings, 5 to 10 feet from property lines. Manure management, just that they're regularly taking care of it for flies, smell, all that. Feed storage must be sealed to prevent rodents. And then containment, all animals must be contained within the property. Not really specifying how they do it, but just that it needs to be done. And this is not the ordinance, this is just some additional discussion.
Yeah.
Directing.
So our purpose tonight is just to give you feedback with the idea that you will come back with an ordinance in another meeting or
Yeah,
two.
most likely July.
Okay. And so per our previous discussion in the work session, the feedback from the commission, as I understood it, is that we were largely in support of this with those additional standards. Commissioner Ackett, did you have a comment?
Yeah, sorry I didn't make it to the first session. I had some family duties, but and I'm sorry I don't, if I say something you've already talked about. When I look at the lot size versus the recommended max, it seems fairly arbitrary, like 8 to 10, 4 to 6, 12 to 12,000, 6 to 8, 20, 8 to 10. If I just look at that in a more simpler math, it kind of looks like a minimum 8,000 square foot lot size, one hen per 2,000 square foot. So if it's 8, it's 4. If it's 10, it's 5. If it's 12, it's 6. If it's 20, it's 10. Then you don't have to worry about, is it 8,000 square foot lot with 6 hens? Is it 10,000 with 4 hens? Is it 12 with 6 or 12? Like, it just seems like the math there is too complicated. Maybe we could just consolidate that math.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, isn't our current language saying that 20,000 square foot lot can have 25
Yeah.
chickens?
Yeah, so that definitely, when you have a half acre lot, there is a little bit of economy of scale. This is looking at it more from a subdivision residential neighborhood. So there is a gap. There certainly is a significant gap, and this is more on the conservative side.
You don't need that bottom 20,000.
Microphone.
What she's saying is you need that bottom 20,000 notation you made.
Well,
there.
this would be
Since it's-
between 12 to 20. But what Jason is saying, we could also do
Just make it a more consistent
uh
scale.
per,
Oh,
yeah, starting at 8,000, so many, and just have a little chart in there. I at one point had a half acre lot and I had like 12 chickens in a little coop, and it didn't matter how, it was like, I mean, they were contained and took care of it, and so I think, but on a smaller lot, I think it does make sense to kind of limit it, because certainly 20 hens can get out of hand, and even 10 or 15 can get out of hand pretty quick.
Yeah, I don't think I was reading that the way you intended, that it
Yeah.
was between 12 and 20. I was reading it that at a 20,000 square foot lot, you can have 8 to 10 hens, where the current language says at a 20,000 square foot lot, you can
Yeah.
have 25. So
Yeah.
that probably needs to be more clear.
Exactly.
I like Jason's suggestion. Jason's suggestion, I think, kind of solves it.
Okay, I'll look at that,
Yeah.
make a
One-
note
one
here.
hen Per every 2,000 square foot, same numbers,
Yeah,
but it covered everything in between.
that's true.
One hand per se is 2,000 square foot. I think that's a great suggestion from Jason.
Starting at 8,000. I think the biggest thing is just the additional standards.
Mhm.
You know, yeah, they should have the number of right hands, but then also the fact that people are willing to maintain them in this way, and then there won't be issues.
Yeah, I like the comment about the setback from the property line, because I do feel like, if you're right on your neighbor's property line and you've got, I don't know the impact of chickens, but I assume they're, can be interesting at a minimum, and so to keep them away from the property line seems to make sense in case the next door neighbor doesn't really feel the same way about chickens. I like that standard.
Any other comments?
You have a hand up.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I agree with Jason very much on the property line thing. I'm not sure if 5 feet is enough. I think that maybe we should stick right with 10 feet.
Which that also kind of goes back to our discussion of, is a property fence sufficient containment, or do they need to be kept in a coop? If they need to be kept 5 or 10 feet away from the property line, then they're probably going to need to be in a coop. Any other
It
thoughts?
was interesting concept, some of those other Jake provided, they were suggesting that the animals have 40% of the lot to utilize. So I don't know. Keep them in coop, you have to let them have, part of the lot to roam in. Just an idea, I'm not proposing that. That's what the sort of things Jake sent to us said.
Well, some people like to let them run because they, grasshoppers and bugs and all kinds of things. And I mean, does the city care as long as it stays on the property, or do you really want them in a chicken coop?
Part of the discussion.
Yeah, I think the coop's different than the roaming animal, I think the coop is kind of the main coop area would be my guess. So just, it's more about the management of the house versus where they're roaming. So I think my comments are more towards the coop setbacks.
Okay,
And,
want the coop setback, but we're okay with the animal itself
yeah,
running free and being right up against the fence.
So they have the coop, but they don't keep them in it.
Okay, any other comments? What else?
My thought is just what came from the session, Tony's comment and Ray Little's comment about, having standards, requirements defined is probably a good thing. So my question was, is it, do we not want to even open it up at all? But I think it's going to happen. It has in my neighborhood. So I think having defined standards is a good thing.
I also noticed, there's a comment about roosters due to noise, and I wasn't raised on a farm. I can imagine what a rooster sounds like, but I can tell you firsthand, we sleep with all our windows open and ducks aren't quiet. So,
No, we do.
If it's a noise thing, we may want to consider, what that sounds like, because it's very, very unquiet, but it seems cute and natural.
Was there a specific request for ducks?
Well, no.
Maybe we keep it just on chickens, and if someone really wants ducks, then they can come. I don't know. Thoughts on that?
If all of the public request you've heard is chickens, it makes sense to me to stick with chickens.
Well, we only had one person request.
Okay,
But there are a lot of people who have chickens.
true.
There's lots of Easter ducks.
I've noticed the ducks do a great job of getting rid of the grasshoppers. It used to be a thing around here, and those guys are pretty much toast. So I like the purpose of the duck eating the grasshopper. That's nice.
I thought that was the seagulls. No, anyway.
My input would be that the various organizations I've been in is not to make a law and rule unless you have a need for one. Don't try and outguess what the next thing is going to be. If the current need is chickens, like we deal with chickens. And if something else comes up, we can add it as needed. Because I don't think you can ever outguess what the next thing is going to be.
I agree with that.
Okay, so
We anticipate a big duck problem we want to get in front of.
we'll circle this back to just chickens.
So Jake, with the idea of giving you feedback so that you can craft an ordinance, do you feel like you have the information and the feedback that you need?
I do.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. With that, let's move to item number 3 on the agenda. The draft introduction amending certain parts of the general plan. Jake?
Okay. Yeah, so state law requires that the city do a 30-day public notice when they're going to start process of updating the general plan. And we're officially at that step. More than a year, we're into the downtown plan and the parks plan and the trails plan all together as a process. And as part of that, we want to let the county know and the public and stakeholders that we're updating the general plan. And the decision was, rather than to have a standalone downtown plan and parks plan and trails plan, was just take the details from this planning effort and update the general plan. So all of that information lives in a single document and is part of the general plan. So that's what we're in the process of doing. I'm going to go ahead and open up the presentation that was shared earlier this year this is from our public meeting on the downtown. I could go through a couple parts of the vision. This is not what the language we're recommending for the general plan, but just giving you a background on the process. We had 2 public workshops at the middle school, one creating maps, scenarios, and then the second reviewing scenarios. We had 2 online surveys, and then we had a vision celebration here at the city hall. Then we had the posters up at the city for multiple months, and they were online. So there's been a very significant opportunity and significant involvement by the public on the downtown.
So what are the amendments that are being proposed?
You'll see those over the next couple months, the actual amendments and changes. This is just more following the process, giving you background, kind of letting the public know. So this is not the actual, you'll see some of this language proposed in the document, but this is just a little bit of background. For a vision statement, Morgan City will build upon its historical roots, harmonizing its history with future opportunities. The commercial street area is envisioned as a more vibrant downtown with increased destination activities, with walkable streets, pathways, and a downtown plaza with added sidewalks, new crossings, and places to linger. Residents and visitors will enjoy visiting and experiencing downtown. The area will become more mixed use by adding residential living, office, and entertainment to the existing retail, restaurant, and commercial base. The State Street area will continue as a business hub with additional unique opportunities, including riverfront commercial, mixed-use areas, and safe pedestrian crossings. And the safe pedestrian crossing on State Street, that was a big emphasis that will be going to UDOT as part of. Here's kind of a little 3D vision of that before and after. More illustrative than not an actual plan, but intersection at 125 and Commercial, some bulb outs there, plaza back here behind State Street, and then potentially some mixed use behind. That'll be up to private property owners if they want to pursue that. Here it is in terms of a map. So in the Commercial Street area, walkable mixed use in this area, the plaza with the alley, and Commercial Street continues mostly as is with the crosswalk on Industrial Road. And then the new street with the mixed residential overlay that will continue. And then river-oriented commercial, the idea of some restaurants and retail being near the river. Some potential examples from pictures, kind of mixed use downtown. So here's existing photograph. And then here's a rendering of what that could look like. And then the plaza, which is actually under construction, is going to be in some form of this. A place for the bandstand, some colored concrete, shade area, place for a food truck, fire pit. All of this is in progress. So that's kind of exciting to move from design into construction. There's another existing photo and then illustration on that.
Jay, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, thank you. Just one comment. And again, I'm sorry I missed the first meeting. Amending certain parts of the general plan. So is this activity intended as like an internal activity for us to just take what we have and keep working it? Or is this including an outside third party, like the big thing we did with the whole general plan a few years ago? I just wanted some context on that.
So, yeah, yes. So I have a team that's been working on the downtown plan for a year. I think you've met some of the other planners and designers. So that part is in progress and mostly done in terms of content. Now it's taking all of that into the general plan. And tonight is more of a one following the public statute in terms of we're having a public meeting, letting the public know it's coming. And then this is just a background on where the project has been the last year. Does that answer your question? Not quite.
Well, thanks for your work and your vision. I like that.
So
I guess
same
probably what-
document. We'll just be revising so the same general plan will be updated with the new downtown plan vision and also the parks and trails.
Okay. I guess the root of my question really was more about allocation of resources and being somewhat frugal.
This was
It's
all done
like-
through a grant that the city received
Perfect.
from
'Cause
Wasatch
it-
Front Regional Council.
Okay, awesome. It just seemed like it was a big activity with a big firm involved last time, and I was just a little bit like, are we gonna go through that again? Or we're just kind of more massaging and a little bit more, I don't even have the right word for that, but a little more specific in nature than a complete, like, every 20 years do a general plan revision. It's not that grandiose.
Yeah, okay, I see where you're coming from. So this is not rehashing or redoing the work that was already done. This is zooming in on the downtown, on the parks, on the trails.
Okay, that
And-
helps clarify. Thank you.
And sometimes what cities will do is they'll have a separate downtown plan, they'll have a separate parks plan, they'll have a separate trails plan. We had the discussion and made the recommendation, let's put this content into the general plan so that it's all within a single document rather than just have other general plans and take it through the public process. So it's not redoing, but zeroing in and also actually meeting the goals of the general plan. Because in the general plan, there was goals for downtown plan, there were goals for parks plans, trails plan.
And with that in mind, that we are just kind of following procedure and letting the public know that these amendments are coming, the commission has been pretty involved all along in the downtown plan, in the trails plan, in the various plans that are going to be coming together under this general plan umbrella. So I guess my question is there anything else you want us to know tonight? Or should we just look forward to those amendments coming in the future?
Yeah, I think just look forward to that.
Okay. With that, does anybody have any questions or anything that they would like clarification on tonight as Jake moves forward with this? Okay, anything else you'd like to tell us?
No.
Okay. That was the last item on our agenda. Yes, barring any further comments. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Thank you to the members of the public who joined us, and meeting adjourned.